Excuse me, one of my interests in the world, as Mahdi Shaheeb Sher, is the British. I don't quite identify with the British. I was born in Great Britain. This is unfortunate for circumstances, but you're born wherever you are, so that's how it is. And I think with the British, you have to live with the pigs. You have to live with pigs. That's how it is. But I think that's how it is for most world leaders. You have to live with your enemy. And I think that's what it is, living with the British. So I think I'm kind of some kind of product of the Kennedy administration of America, or President Kennedy, who kind of cultivated a policy of immigration during the 60s around the world. And because of that, I think I had parents and relatives who migrated to Great Britain and immigrated to Great Britain, and they settled there in the 60s. And I think that's why I'm present in Great Britain and Europe, and that's why I live with Europeans. So I think that's the main consideration, some kind of byproduct of the 60s, and that's how it is. But I think those are fairly typical circumstances that develop from the 60s, typical circumstances that develop from the 60s. And I think that with the British, it's a case of having to tune in to a different character and a different people. These are Protestant people. I think that's what British people are. They're like the Germans and the Americans, and maybe the Australians and South Africans. They're Protestant by conviction and nature. So they are very, I think they like hard furniture and things. I think that's what Protestants like, and they drink beer and things like that. So I don't like most of those things, but I think that with the British, they do have kind of a stiff gesture, and I think that they're not warm-blooded but cold-blooded. I think they are pretty much cold-blooded. I think a lot of them like cold showers, and that doesn't exist anywhere else in the world, only in Great Britain. So I think that most people enjoy hot showers as a luxury because it's a very nice thing to have. But I think with the British, they kind of throw that luxury away and instead opt for a cold shower because they find it good. And I think that's kind of the testimony of the British character, having some kind of a cold shower. And I think I don't quite identify with the British. I don't speak to them. I don't make eye contact with them. I don't smile with them. I avoid the British because I think that the British are perhaps perhaps Protestant in the world. So I have disfavourable opinions of British. I think that the main concern about the British is that despite their British Empire, they have nothing to show for it. They have no philosophers, no scientists. They have no great literature, no great science, no great art. The greatest art could be Henry Moore, and that's great art. That's grey art, sorry, that's grey art. Grey art, it's grey art. They have no great literature. They have no great law. Perhaps one symbolic law that kind of codifies their intention with the world so they can introduce themselves to the world. And I think that they have no great buildings What's the greatest building? It could be the Parliament building, which is a brown Gothic building. Buckingham Palace is another good building, perhaps a building from the British Empire. And they also have Nelson's Column. I think those are the three structures they have to show for the British Empire. They have nothing else to show. Most of Great Britain live in small house dwellings, and despite having all of the wealth plundered from countries that belong to the British Empire, they have very little to show for it. They have no great advancement in the world, no law, no civic development or advancement or achievement. What's the biggest achievement of the British Empire? Biggest achievement of the British Empire is to create some kind of a shipping and colonialism and a Western Hemisphere influence with shipping. I think that's the biggest achievement of the British Empire. They don't have great generals or military commanders or conquerors like Alexander the Great or Julius Caesar or Hannibal or Napoleon or Genghis Khan. The greatest general they've had is General Wellington. And if you look at his skill, he's not very good as a general. He just digs his heels into the mud, and that's how he thinks he's good. That's how General Wellington thinks he's good, and that's not very good. It just achieves a lot with other people's weaknesses, and the British think that's good, and that's why it's good in history. But I think with the British, they wrap food in newspapers, and nobody else does that in the world. Nobody, that's illegal. I think they wrap food in newspapers, and newspapers are very important for how politics and world events develop in the world, and you shouldn't wrap food in newspapers. So that's an important kind of consideration and a respect for newspapers and information. And I think that there's also an issue with perhaps not having great passion or blood for things. It's kind of just I think it's kind of having fish bodies or something. I think because they're an island that are surrounded by waters, and there's perhaps a culture of fishing that perhaps might have eaten a lot of fish and become fish. So I think it could be some kind of cultural inheritance with being an island and a water. And I think that the weather is quite bad in that it rains all the time. So you have to deal with that condition every day. To have to live with rain all the time, and that's very miserable. So it's living with rain all the time. I think it's something like that. Thank you very much.